Hi and welcome back to the weekly roundup here. Did I just say the weekly roundup? I like that. The weekly roundup. I like that. I'm going to go with that. Welcome to the weekly roundup here on Grown Food News. We're on episode 4. Yeah, episode 4. Before I start, you know that we're trying to get the channel to 10,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed already, press off the subscribe button and subscribe right now. Thank you. And when you watch the video, make sure you like it as well. Thank you very much for doing that. So today I am going to be talking about a bit of breaking news that has been coming out of Jamaica for the past few days now. And it's around the athletes that have apparently switched their allegiance from the Jamaican athletic team or federation or association to Turkey. And that bit of news has rocked Jamaica massively. Everybody in Jamaica has been talking about it. So let's just get right into it. Now, I don't know what you think about this, but let me just first say what I think about this. I look at sport as a job. You know, it's no different to being a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, an engineer, whatever it is that you decide to do. And you know, just as how anybody who is doing those jobs would want to get the best income that they can get for doing those jobs, that is how I feel about sports. You know, I know a lot of people feel like people should be patriotic and, you know, and that's all great. But at the end of the day, these athletes, they're doing this as a job. They've got like families to feed, they've got expenses, they've got to live, you know. So I see this, I don't see anything wrong with this. I don't see anything wrong with any athlete taking their trade or their skill and taking that to a country or a club that is willing to pay them or compensate them what they think they deserve for the skill, talent, or what they contribute. I know that there's been a lot of debate in Jamaica at the moment around whether these people are patriotic. You know, they've betrayed Jamaica. I've been hearing a lot of that. They might chase the money. You know, they're chasing money. Listen, like at the end of the day, everybody have to do what is right for them and their own families, you know. And look, of course, like anybody else, I want to see the best athletes representing Jamaica. But if at the end of the day, they don't feel like they're treated well enough, you know, because it's all about how you're treated. Because a lot of people, and I've done this before in the past as well. You know, I've worked for places where, you know, in jobs where the salary, you know, I could get more by moving to another company. But the company or the organization that I'm working for, because they treat me well, and I know that they haven't got the resources to compete with the other people in the market, but they try their best and they try and, you know, make up for it in other ways. Then people can stay because of that loyalty, because, you know, you like what you're doing, you like the fact that you're contributing to something good if that's what your job is, and you can be loyal. And, you know, if it's in the case of representing your country, you can be patriotic to that. But if you feel like your skills and your contribution are, you know, underappreciated and under rewarded, then I think it's on you to do what you think is best for yourself and for your career. I think anybody would do that. So for anybody to say any differently about what these athletes have done is a bit disingenuous, because, you know, people make, you know, the best decisions for themselves and for their careers all the time. And these athletes, you know, I don't think they're doing anything differently here. Now, of course, this is all embarrassing. I think this is massively embarrassing for Jamaica and the J3. You know, it's massively embarrassing for them, because these athletes, they've been complaining for some time now about the treatment that they've been getting, especially the field athletes, you know. And the worst thing about it is that at the last Olympics in Paris 2024, last year, Jamaica got 6 Olympic medals, and out of those 6 medals, 5 of them, I think, came from the field events. The 1 gold medal that we got was from Stoner, I think, in the discus, you know. And I remember one time I heard rumors that he was trying out for the NFL as well, you know. So this is a man where he has been at the top of his sport for years, and I think he threw an Olympic record in Paris to get that gold medal. And yet he didn't feel like he could make enough money in that sport to sustain him and his family. And from that, he tried out for the NFL, and it doesn't look like he was successful in that. And now I heard that he's one of the athletes that have been approached or is in process to switch to the Turkish national team. So, it's embarrassing for the J3A because these athletes have been talking about the support for a long time now. So, I think this is a bit of a, it's a bit embarrassing. It's a bit embarrassing for them. So I can understand why. And I can understand why the Jamaican community is, shaken and shocked. I don't know if they're shocked, but they might be a little bit disappointed. They might be a little bit disappointed, which I can understand. Now, what I want to talk about is, and obviously, some of the financial rewards that these athletes are going to be getting, I hear. I think there's a sign-on bonus of $500,000 US. Now, drop your thoughts in the comments. If you would refuse, if you were a runner, a swimmer, a discus thrower, a shot putter, a long jumper, whatever, play marbles, whatever it is, anything that you compete in, and you are competing at the highest level, and you're not being paid anything for your efforts, and somebody comes up to you and offers you $500,000 US, tell me say you're not take it. Tell me say you're not take it, because me know me I take it. You know what I mean? Like, me know say me I take that. Right? So I don't think we can really fault these people for what they're doing. They're doing the best for themselves. They're doing what any one of us would have done. Now, but I do think that there's some opportunity in all of this. Whenever there is a crisis, you should always look for opportunities, and look what we've got here. Because we've known for years that Jamaica has been dominant in track and field athletics. Jamaica has a strong talent pool in athletics. And this is not the first time, this is not the first time we've had Jamaican athletes switching their allegiances to other countries. I think Ali Harvey and another athlete switched to Turkey a few years ago. So this is not the first time this is happening. And I know that in the past as well, athletes have switched to countries like Bahrain as well. Bahrain is one of those countries that they've always been trying to recruit world-class athletes to represent them at the Olympics. Because listen, the Olympics is a big thing, The Olympics is a massive marketing opportunity for you to promote your country, to have your flag risen, to have your national anthem played on, TVs across the world, hundreds of millions of people watching, talking about your country. It's a massive marketing thing. So I can fully understand why countries are doing this. Now, Jamaica needs to realize here that we can't compete. We can't compete with the likes of Bahrain and Turkey. Now, Turkey isn't even a rich country, but they've got plenty more money than Jamaica. And the fact is, we can't compete with the levels of funding that the Turkish are offering, the Turkish people or the Turkish government are offering these athletes. So the Jamaican government and the J3A especially, they need to know how they want to sort of capitalize on this or utilize this as an opportunity to, one, improve track and field and the support provided to athletes in the country. They need to have a hard look at themselves and, look at how they can do that in a more sustainable way. Now, I don't know how much they've been trying to do it, but clearly the athletes feel like it hasn't been enough. Whatever support the J3A has been providing has not been good enough, and that's why they're making this switch. Otherwise, they wouldn't be switching their allegiance. So the J3A, I think there are opportunities here because Jamaica is a massive brand when it comes to track and field. And if we can sell, the expertise, and the country in track and field in a much better way. Because here is the thing, we can do this in a way, this can be done in a way in which is mutually beneficial to all parties. I'm not saying that Jamaica should sell athletes to countries, because I don't think Jamaica has the rights to these athletes. You know, like how a football club can sell a player to another club and earn a lot of money. Like these athletes, they're not under contract under the J3A. So the J3A do not own their services. However, I do think that there's an opportunity where these athletes can be convinced to remain in Jamaica and keep the investment, keep the money that they're being given in Jamaica. I think there's an opportunity for that, you know. So by all means, go to Turkey or go to Bahrain and represent their country and raise their flag at the Olympics. However, if these athletes are training in Jamaica and spending that money in Jamaica, building, you know, gyms and sports centers and paying coaches and physiotherapists and, you know, other people who work in the sporting industry, if this becomes an entire industry, this can be built into a massive industry. Jamaica can become a feeder country when it comes on to track and field. And I don't know how much that has ever been explored. Because the fact of the matter is, we have events like Champs, and Champs produces hundreds of athletes per year. And the God Almighty truth of it is, not all of these athletes will be able to represent Jamaica, because sometimes it is so competitive to get on some of these Jamaican teams, especially in the sprints and so on. So if that's the case, why is it that, you know, these athletes, by all means, go and represent Turkey, you know, run for Turkey or Bahrain or Qatar or whoever at the Olympics, but stay in Jamaica, spend the money in Jamaica, because it's not only the sign-on bonus that they're getting, the $500,000 that they're getting a monthly stipend as well to pay for their training and everything that they need to perform at the highest level. You know, they have to pay coaches, they have to pay physiotherapists, they have to pay all these people, you know, managers, you know. But if we can get them to stay in Jamaica and spend that money in Jamaica, and some of that money fed back into grassroots sports and goes back to the J3A, and then the J3A can then use that money to provide better support for the athletes, you know, there could be an opportunity here. So I kind of feel like, instead of like holding our heads in our hands and think, oh Lord, you know, them gone run for next country. Listen, there's nothing that we can do about, you know, where people decide to ply their trade. There's nothing we can do about that. There's nothing we can do about somebody deciding that it is in their best interest to go and run somewhere else or go and throw a discus somewhere else. So we have to think about how Jamaica, like how Brazil is known for football, you know, and Kenya is known for distant running. Do you know the amount of athletes, runners that I see going to Kenya every year, you know? And countries are recruiting athletes from Kenya as well, because I am sure Turkey isn't just recruiting from Jamaica. They're recruiting multiple athletes from many countries, you know? So Jamaica needs to look at this and realize that, look, we need to see how we can capitalize on this. You know, what kind of, you know, how can we encourage these athletes to stay in Jamaica, because Jamaica recognizes dual nationality, you know, so they can by all means remain in Jamaica. They're still Jamaican. They can still live in Jamaica and represent Turkey. And they're training in Jamaica. Now, I know that Roger Stoner lives in the United States, and maybe a couple of the other athletes as well. So maybe in this specific situation, we wouldn't be able to capitalize on that. But I think we should remain open-minded to this. Jamaica should remain open-minded to this and not just shut this down. You know, how can this be used? Because I think J3A is underfunded. I think J3A is underfunded. I don't think they have the money. Now, the question is, how can they get the money? You know, how can they, you know, position themselves, put themselves in a better position to capitalize on this and pull more money in the J3A, not for the administrators to pocket, because we know there's enough of that go on, but we want that money to reach the athletes, to provide the right supports to the athletes. That's what we want, We want the money to get into the Jamaican economy, athlete management agencies, training academies, gyms, that sort of thing, coaches, sports nutritionists, all these people, and have that money funneled back into the economy. This could be a massive industry for Jamaica. However, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying by any means that, athletes should be selling their soul. That's not what I'm saying here. I am saying that many times, a lot of these athletes will not be able to make a Jamaican team. We've seen that in the past. Unfortunately, in the situation that we've got now, the athletes that are going are at the top of their game. So we know that these athletes would have been on a Jamaican team. They've been on Jamaican teams. They've won medals, gold medals, some of them. So we know that this is going to be a big loss to Jamaica. However, if the J3A can set this up in a way in which the association and the support that they give to athletes can benefit, I think that there could be an opportunity here. Because, as I said, Jamaica is known for producing world-class track and field athletes. So, and many of them will never be able to represent Jamaica because they might not be good enough to make a Jamaican team because it's so competitive. But, and in many ways as well, with the right training, they can become better. And that's the other thing, because if Turkey is going to be paying these athletes a monthly wage and pay for their coaching and that sort of thing, then these athletes can actually become world class. However, Jamaica isn't in a position to provide them with the support and the facilities that they need for whatever reason. So we have to be open-minded about this. But I think that there's an opportunity here. There's definitely an opportunity here for Jamaica to sit and have a hard think, the J3 especially, to have a hard think about how this can be structured, because perhaps they haven't even got the structures in place to facilitate this kind of thing yet. But the J3A has to think how this can be done in a way that athletes benefit. How can they change the narrative so that in the next 10 years, we don't have our best athletes being pawned off to other countries, or athletes choosing to go and represent in another country because they don't feel like they're getting the support that they need at home. If an athlete goes and represents another country, it should be because they feel like they have a better chance of getting to the Olympics or a world championship by representing another country, because it's too competitive to get on the Jamaican team. That's the only time the J3A, say in the next 10 years, if they do this right, if they secure the funding, the only time an athlete should be thinking about going to represent another country is when it's too competitive to make the Jamaican team, and they're better off served going to run for another country, or be a long jumper or a shot putter or a discus thrower for another country. They can make a team there because they can't make a Jamaican team. Because at the end of the day, these people, these athletes, they are professionals. They all want to perform at the highest level. They all want to go to the Olympics, but not everybody can go wearing that black, green and gold. So maybe we need to rethink how this works. Jamaica needs to rethink how this works and see how this can be structured in a way where some athletes will go, they will go and run for another flag, but we get them to stay in Jamaica, train in Jamaica, hire Jamaicans, build sports centers in Jamaica, gyms, academies, agencies, keep the money in the Jamaican economy, and allow some of that money to reach into sort of grassroots parts of the sports. And then from there, the J3A can provide the better support that these athletes need to ply their trade at the highest level. I want to hear what you think about this. I want to hear what you think about this. So this is just, my thoughts on this so far, because I've been following the news coming out of Jamaica, and I thought I'd jump on and make a quick video of it for this week's episode. So I'm not reading through any comments or anything this week. I'm just talking about this one issue. So let me know what you think about this in the comments. Can Jamaica use this as an opportunity? Could Jamaica actually flip the narrative and actually benefit from this by structuring it in such a way that we get some money funneled back into the sports in Jamaica? Let me know what you think in the comments, as ever. And look, we're trying to get the channel to 10,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed already, press off the subscribe button and press the like button as well. When you like the video, YouTube will recommend it to more people. So if you like what I'm doing here, press the like button, press subscribe. Thank you, and I will see you next week on the weekly ground-up. I keep on saying that, the weekly ground-up. I should definitely keep that name, the weekly ground-up. I've never thought of that, the weekly ground-up.